And we're here.
It turns out with a passcode, you can join without waiting in the lobby.
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm wondering whether without the passcode, you would still arrive in the lobby.
I doubt it. I think the way you used to have it set up, oops, my alarm just went off. Hang on. Forgot
so you're
that
recording on your machine?
No, I set my timer to remind me when it's 11 o'clock in case I fell asleep.
Are you recording though?
No.
Okay. So
it says it's recording. You're recording because I got the alert. This is being recorded.
Okay, good. Because I was wondering whether it defaulted to whoever got there first records.
Well, first of all, I don't have co-host yet, if ever. And if I click the record button, it says I have to send a request to get permission from you to record on my device.
Okay.
I think that may be new. I don't remember that I ever had to ask permission to record locally before.
You did. I'm pretty sure you did.
Okay.
Although this time it didn't tell me that it was recording. Normally it tells me.
Well, it told me when I connected.
I had to Sam Chan could get in without me letting him into the lobby. So the passcode is actually kind of useful then. But I still wonder.
You still had to let me in.
Barry or Sam?
I'm sorry, say again.
If you drop out and then try joining without the passcode, just with the old URL, would you land in the lobby?
No,
I'm not sure that I could do that because I'm the host.
It prompts me for the passcode.
The session is already going.
So what? No, here's what happened. Yeah, here's what happened. I clicked on the Zoom coordinate, and then it said, please enter passcode. And until I entered the passcode, it didn't proceed. After I entered the passcode, then I got just me. The whole picture was just me. And either that meant that you hadn't connected yet, or you hadn't let me in yet. I don't know which.
I hadn't connected yet. You got there way before me today.
All right, so I got there first. I just saw myself. As soon as you came on, I think at that point, both cameras appeared, and I had to click "Got it."
Okay.
Something I could be wrong about the sequence. Whether you didn't have to let me in, right?
Yeah, you have the passcode, so that seems to be at least somewhat advantageous. Right. Yeah. You actually can join without me letting anyone in. I didn't let Sam in, for example.
Correct. A passcode suffices to let somebody in.
Yeah.
Without the host having to expressly do it. That's the whole point of a passcode.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be letting half a dozen or a dozen people in Spain. But if you have no passcode, if that's even still possible, then you do have to let them in by hand.
Alrighty.
I think. I mean, as we play with this a bit more, we'll see when new people arrive whether or not they get in with or without.
Okay. Anyway,
if you think of it like two keys, okay, one is account number, the other one is a passcode, right? So passcode is optional, but the account key, the account number is that. For example, mine is 5516880. That number. I don't put any passcode, or you can go straight into it because that's how I set it up, because I don't share with everybody else. So that's how mine works. So I believe that whatever your old account number was and the new account is totally different. So therefore, regardless of passcode or no passcode, I cannot get back to your new account because it's a totally different new account number. If you look really carefully, that string of URL will tell you the account number.
It is
984323542 is still the same, though.
That's what I thought. That's still the same. That didn't change. What changed was that it now requires me to put in the duck farm.
So if the account number is exactly the same, the URL is exactly the same as before.
The URL includes the encoded passcode. The PWD equals, that wasn't there before.
Again, they're two different things. The URL can include the passcode, but if the session itself that he started doesn't require, the account doesn't require passcode, regardless of the passcode or no passcode, it can still come right in.
Okay, I will try doing that because I do recall that it did say your account is no longer active. And so I signed up again.
That's
and it
right.
says, oh, you now have a new account.
That's
So-
right. That's what I'm saying to you. You have to go back and get back your old account in order to make your old the 5/4 whatever that was
Okay.
to work. That's why I said I need you to. One is the right address, the other one's the right passcode. There are two different things. If you go to the wrong address, you go into the wrong place.
I didn't even
So-
check to see whether or not it gave me the old account back.
So
You
that
cannot.
984323542 is different from what it used to
Oh,
be. in
that's the
old days?
session. The session is still the same. The recurring
Ah.
session is still the same.
Okay, and it's marked barn racing. This session is called barn racing.
Yeah. If it's a different name, I'm pretty sure 99% is a different account number, so to speak. Think of it like different address.
That's right. It's a session number, not an account number, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a session URL.
Yeah, you're right. It's the session number, that is not your permanent Zoom ID, I don't think. That is a session within your account.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because people can have one account with multiple sessions with different participants.
Yeah. This is my house, this is not your house. This is my new house, this is my vacation home. Account number is like an address. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, mine is set up because I have a free account. Actually, I take it back. I do have a password on my free account because I have a group that meets every week where a bunch of us all used to work together. And as long as they use the password, they can get in even if I don't show up.
That's right. I don't know how that's set up, but
I set it up that way because if I'm not available, the other people who meet for lunch every Wednesday can still meet on my account.
They have to have your password unless
Right.
it's password. Yeah.
Right, I created a password, which is essentially the initials of the company that we all work for.
All right. All right.
And also they have the URL with the PWD equals. Jim.
Right. No,
So
URL
what-
is not important. URL is not important. The login name and the password is allowed to go start a session. That's the key
Right.
to start a session.
Right, and I do not have to let them in. I expressly set up that I do
Yeah.
not have to manually let them in.
That's again security thing. So the front door is not locked. Yeah.
But the first person who connects when I'm not there, I get an email to that effect. So-and-so just connected to your session on email.
Yeah, it's only if they are living near your area neighborhood. If you give it to somebody in India and someone in Europe, then they will ask us, you send a passcode to the email to say, unless you have this passcode, I will not let you in.
Really? Well,
Yes, I know this because I have worldwide Zoom call, multiple account sharing thing, because they don't want somebody to steal your account and use your account.
Yeah, well, I told my friends, I said, if this password ever leaks, I'll have to change it.
Yeah, that's right.
But so far, the password has never leaked and nobody's ever connected to that session without me knowing who they are.
Okay, get somebody in California to log in, and then you will send a passcode, like a 6-digit passcode to your email, whatever sign up it is, and say unless you enter this passcode, they will not. So the person in California, for example, will say, "What's your passcode? I just emailed to you." If you don't have it, you will not log in the session. Again, you might come into that problem when they are cracking down on sharing passcode counting, password counting.
Yeah, that may be a new feature because I've never had that situation arise.
Yeah, usually it's location. It's like too far away. Like if you're in India one day and the next day you're in
Well,
China.
actually, one of our members moved from Boston to Denver to Colorado.
Right.
And so when he started connecting from Colorado, there was no difference. He still got in the same old way.
He signed in or no? That's the sign in part is the security part.
He signed into his Zoom account.
He signed to his Zoom account, but he's not signing. The person that get a new passcode verification is the person that start the session.
Yeah. All I know is that one of our members moved out of state and it was no problem. It was,
Right.
it
Yeah,
was
but
automatically coming in as.
yeah, you're fine. You're
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. The downside is only 40 minutes and we have to take a station break and restart after every.
It's
40.
perfect. Go biological break.
I don't need to spend $20 a month for one
Yeah.
one noontime session a week.
I only pay $10 because I'm the grandfather in all the way.
Oh, okay. I'm too cheap to spend that kind of money for.
I still
Yeah.
spend $17 a month. I think it's 15 or 17.
17 a month.
I thought it was 20. I don't know.
Yeah, that's usually 20 or 40 or whatever that is. Mine is $10. I don't know anybody else have a $10 account like mine. I started like this first started, yeah.
Beats me how that works. Maybe they have specials every once in a while to like.
No, it's basically when they first started the company, I sign in and I'm logging in to help them. I know it's a good thing to do and all that stuff. So I'm early adopter.
Anyway,
Early adopter.
it's not really important. I mean, these arcane security issues are a pain in the tuchus to try to sort out the finer details of.
Right. Talk about that.
Because you can't remember them anyway. When the glitch occurs, it's too late. You've already forgotten the details anyway. You have to research it fresh.
I forget whether it's in this group or some other group, but usually, when supporting customers or diagnosing issues, I swear, third to a half the time, it's all authentications, permissions, certificates.
It's a friggin'
all of that.
Did I tell you the story? I think I did tell you the story yesterday about the community center here.
Yeah.
We have the site certificate issue and not enough bandwidth of the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I reported it, and they power cycled the friggin' Wi-Fi, thinking that was going to fix it, which only, of course, made it worse. Middle of the meeting, they power cycled the Wi-Fi in the building on us.
So, as important as a community center, I would recommend a second ISP. Like one Comcast, one AT&T, or something like that. So that way. Yeah,
but then hooking it up to cell phone hotspots, I mean, that's another fucking problem.
Right. That's a device, by the way, Barry, before I forget, that's a device you can buy for like $60 or $70. You can actually take two ISP one to one, and if one go down, the other one take over. It's for about $60. It's really cheap.
Yeah. One of the people, the president of the Toastmasters actually had some gizmo that he hung off the side of his laptop that did that. It was some kind of a
hey Sam,
second ISP thing.
Devices.
Say again.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, Barry. I know you were speaking. Sorry.
It's okay. What was the question?
Is that, Sam, is that a question, that device that you're talking about, is that something that does bandwidth shaping? In other words, it'll always optimize for the higher bandwidth option?
It
does everything. It does everything.
Yeah.
It does everything.
It was just a thing he plugged into the USB. It was about yay big.
Right.
That meant that he could get on the internet because the laptop itself isn't a cell phone.
Yeah, it's a hotspot.
Laptop is not a cell phone. He basically would plug this thing in, and that would give him the cell phone access.
Right.
And it was already pre-configured for his cell phone account. It basically looked like a wired internet access to the computer.
Yeah. So right now, if you get a lot of ads on the internet, it's a Verizon home internet.
Yeah.
Okay. So Verizon home internet, for example, does not use any wiring at all wireless. It's all 5G technology.
Yeah.
It give you a hotspot box, and all you do is connect the USB or Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Or you can actually connect to Ethernet as well. You have RJ45 cable as well.
I should ask Rob if he still has that little dangle or dongle, or whatever you call it, and if it still has an active subscription, because that would be a way to get one laptop on the internet if the Wi-Fi is overloaded or is inaccessible. The problem is that community center was not designed to have a dozen people in one room all on a Zoom call with 12 video channels in parallel. I mean, you got 12 times 12 or whatever, however many that works out to be. We overloaded the bloody Wi-Fi bandwidth.
Yeah, that's why I say recommend the community center to add a second ISP. It will help a lot. Two things. I just sent a link to you guys on the chat. So this little gizmo, now $60 or $70, we can actually bond the two bandwidth together. Let's say 100 and 100. Now you got 200 to go with it. When one go down, the other one take over.
Yeah.
There's just all kinds of crazy stuff for that price. It's really good.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask Rob if he still has that dongle and if it's still functional.
And then if he had the dongle, he can actually, there's a device that you can buy. You can actually plug the dongle USB instead to his laptop, now to that device. Now you got 3 internet going on at the same time.
So you can gang multiple parallel cell phone channels.
Yeah, just gang. There are 3 ways to gang it. One is serial. There's one fail. The other one take over. The other one you can bond it together, because bonded together is more complicated.
Yeah, parallel and failover.
Yeah, When you're bonded together, that means instead of getting 100 megabit, now you got 200.
Oh, so a single video can be wider bandwidth than.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
not going to need that on Zoom. I think the videos are not that bandwidth intense for.
You never know. You never know.
These are not 4K movie.
You never know, Barry.
Panorama.
What happened is this: while they're in Zoom session, the stupid window updates in the background and sucking up 90% of the bandwidth.
Yeah, if your laptop tries to download the next upgrade to Windows while you're running a Zoom and you don't
Not
know
just
it.
that, Zoom itself is what Sam is saying.
Yeah.
Well,
Zoom, they can do update. Some stupid software in the background will run an update. You have no control over who is going through it. So the more bandwidth you have, that's why I say community center,
yeah.
the more important the place is in multiple people. It's about $100, about $80 for 100 megabit nowadays.
That explains it, because if somebody's laptop in the background, their Windows is downloading an update, that's going to lock. So that's not just the Zoom session. Any one person out of the dozen could suddenly be downloading an update on Windows.
Yep.
Oh, see, what happens is that every once in a while, when somebody is spotlighted full screen, Zoom will say limited bandwidth, and it'll drop it down to a smaller picture in the middle.
I can go on and on, Barry. Go on and on. If someone sends you a big file attachment in your email and you open your email application, guess what happened?
Better not do that in the middle of a Zoom meeting.
I'm not kidding you. This is what happened.
Yeah.
So you have to instruct your member to stop the updates. Don't open your email. All kinds of things. Stop doing the thing that otherwise you suck up all your bandwidth. I'm just telling you.
But the people who were present in the Lexington Community Center meeting room on Zoom are not toggling away from the Zoom session. They couldn't possibly participate in the meeting if they shrunk the Zoom session and started playing with email. That would be kind of, I mean.
No, it's not that. A lot of times the emails or whatever application is running in background. Or another application suck out a lot of bandwidth. You know what it is? Yeah. Skype.
Well, you can't be running Skype at the same time as you're running.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Why would they be doing that?
Yeah, Microsoft Teams, Skype running in background, they suck out a lot of bandwidth. For example,
but I get your point that if Windows is doing something in the background that's bandwidth intense, that could explain why certain individuals suddenly get insufficient bandwidth.
Yeah.
Because what I've noticed is that at the end of a meeting, when I go to shut down the laptop, it says install new updates and shut down, meaning that it had been doing some kind of a downloading of.
That's right.
Update. And yes, you can pause the updates for 7 days or whatever, and I've never bothered to do that.
Right. Another key thing that I want to share with you so that you have this thing in your pocket. You go to Task Manager. You know how to go Task Manager, right? Okay. When you go to Task Manager, go to the tab where it say Internet, the LAN or speed, whatever the internet speed, and see which application is downloading, how much bandwidth is sucked up.
Yeah. You know, what I had said to these people, now that we have as many as 12 people coming in person with their laptops, I said we might need to switch to a completely different approach where we have 2 or 3 tripod mounted room cameras and nobody sitting in the room is going to use Zoom, because because we're just basically overloading the network. And so we may switch to a completely different model of only one laptop for the moderator and another 2 laptops for room cameras, and that's it.
Right.
Then we don't have to do spotlighting. Well, spotlighting becomes easier because you don't have to spotlight the person who's got themselves muted.
Yeah.
Because that's been a fucking pain to get everybody. Mute your speaker, mute your mic. When I spotlight, you do not turn your mic back on.
Yeah.
And then invariably somebody, clicks the wrong button. They turn their mic back on when they're spotlighted. And we got feedback, and I got to figure out how to correct that. And I said to them, I said, look, we need to build into the hour-long agenda a 5-minute extra time to take out of the meeting to fix glitches as they arise in real time.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm trying to fix glitches without disrupting the meeting.
Yeah, I know.
And I get up and I have to walk over to somebody's computer and whisper in their ear, turn off this, and it's disruptive. But I said, we might as well make this part of the content. instead of the Toastmasters pathways content, we add techways as an addendum. And techways is how to have a Toastmasters meeting that involves 21st century technology.
Yeah.
You're not just talking face to face in the same room. You're also talking to people over Zoom. Half of them are remote, and that's got to be part of the whole program of how do you learn to talk to people when half of them are on video and half of them are in a room.
Yeah.
Where do you stand that you're not backlit by a sunlit window behind you that's washing you out?
What do you think etiquette come from? Manners come from?
Well, yeah, exactly. And you need, well, there was something called netiquette. I don't know if you remember.
Etiquette, yeah. Etiquette, yeah.
So they, back in the days of, what was it called? Net News. Usenet, they called netiquette. Netiquette was manners when you're in online.
Or having dinner right next to each other.
Sorry, say again.
Or having dinner, or having lunch, having a meal right next to each other.
Yeah. So what some people will turn off their camera if they're eating.
Yeah.
And other people will sit there and chewing on snacks or whatever. I mean, I don't turn it off to have a cup of coffee, but some people will do what Sam does. Is if they're eating, they'll tilt the camera so you can't see their mouth. So yeah, netiquette. But the thing is that's a whole nother part of the educational milieu, is to have the techways milieu and the netiquette milieu, in addition to how to give a talk where people can hear every word you said, and you weren't slurring your speech and saying and ah and all. I mean, there's two things to learn now, or actually more than two.
It's part of the package. Otherwise, you cannot deliver.
Yeah. And I've been saying, I said, look, since we're doing hybrid meetings, we have to make how to do hybrid meetings part of the educational package, not just how to get up and talk for 2 minutes without, forgetting what you're talking about.
Have a form, fill in, you pass this test, you pass that test. After you pass all the tests, now you're invited into the room.
We have this one guy, he's an older guy, he's very enthusiastic, but he's technically inept. So he brings in his tripod camera and his webcam, and here's the tripod camera with the little operating handle, and he mounts the webcam pointing this way. So when he tries to tilt the camera, it's going sideways. And I go, why is he looking at the ceiling? And I go, there's something wrong with the way he mounted his bloody webcam, and he doesn't know it. I had to go over in the middle of the meeting and rotate the webcam on top of the tripod so it was aligned with the tilt direction. And I go, I mean, these are the things that I can't diagnose in real time. It takes me, minutes or even days to figure out what the hell went wrong there. What was that glitch? And then after I figure it out, I go fix it. But it's disruptive, and I can't do it in real time. And most of some.
Yeah, Sam, you've been waiting a long time for the hands up.
I'm sorry, Sam has his hand up, but I'm not paying attention.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I wanted to ask a question to sort of revert back to a conversation that had happened before. But before I do, I wanted to say that today I'm actually going to go see my youngest daughter, who's about an hour and a half away.
Is that Ronnie?
For brunch. Yeah, that's Ronnie. Yeah. So I think I haven't even seen her since I got back from Taiwan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go do that. So depending on my schedule, I may take part of this session on the road, but I may not either. I'm just the possibility. So if I black out for a while and then reappear, it's because I'm transitioning to my vehicle.
Well, if nobody else shows up, if it's just the three of us, then we can cut it short. We don't really need to keep each other company for 2.5 hours.
But I do have a question, because it's something that you and Anne-Marie and others have referred to, and it actually is related to the question I was asking Sam yesterday. And the question is in response to one of your postings or someone else's postings. It basically says the past, I was what I was. I am what I am. I will be what I will be. Okay. And I thought, those are all tautologies.
Yes.
Why are those tautologies useful? Because I know that you refer to it a lot.
Yep.
And you also say becoming is, in your mind, equivalent to God.
In Judaism.
And so I'm wondering why we need to use that tautological definition So I'm just curious about all of that. And what does it bring to life if we just restate these tautologies? That was my question. So you don't have to follow up on that, but that's one that I thought I was curious about. So if you choose, that's one that I thought I would lean into over.
I can give you a short answer to that if you're ready for it. The thing is that the three-letter word in English, God, is really a pronoun. And the antecedent of that pronoun is very idiosyncratic to the individual. For some people, the three-letter word God doesn't have an antecedent. It's just a word that has no reference, no concrete reference. To others, it's a storybook character. For others, it's a personal deity. And for some, it's an abstraction. So the question is, at what level of insight do you assign a concrete antecedent reference to this three-letter word that's relevant to your life? And in Judaism, not just in Judaism, if you're sufficiently advanced in education, like over 40 nominally, and you say God, you're not talking about a storybook character in the Old Testament. And you're not talking about how Christians conceive of a personal deity. You're talking about an abstraction, which, and this is the key, the very first time in the Old Testament, Moses, who's considered the founder of the Jewish law, the Jewish concept, and he's trying to realize what is going to be my purpose and my role in life. What am I going to be doing here on this friggin' planet in Egypt, where I'm in the Pharaoh's palace, and all of my kin are out there, in slavery, and he's trying to think his way through, what am I supposed to be doing here? And the inspiration comes to him, Moses, you're going to have to go down there and lead those people out of that terrible condition. And Moses thinks out loud to himself and to the voices in his head, yeah, they're going to say, who the hell, who sent you? I need to be able to tell them who sent me. And the answer comes back from his deity. Tell them, Heya Asher Heya sent you, in the Hebrew. Tell them, will be what will be sent you. Now, that's very hard to interpret when you translate from the Hebrew to English. Heya Asher Heya, will be who, what, or that will be. That's not even a phrase that you would say in conversational English, except that, who's the singer? I'm forgetting her name now. She sang a song, Que Sera, Sera. It's an actress from, I forget how long ago. Damn, I'm forgetting her name.
Her first name began with D, right? Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Sort of a goody two-shoes kind of a character she played. Anyhow, she sang this song, Que Sera, Sera, which is not exactly Latin or whatever. It's sort of a melange of Italian and Latin or something. And it means whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Whatever will be, will be. And other people say, it is what it is. Here's the situation. We're not really thrilled with it. It's not copacetic. It is what it is. And so the tautology, it was what it was. It is what it is today, which is maybe a little better or not. And it will be what it will be in the future, which is hopefully going to be better. So the notion that there is an evolution over time of the state of affairs, and the evolution of the state of affairs is partly due to nature and partly due to our own volition, our own thinking and consciousness and activity and intent. And so the combination of evolution as developed by cosmology and nature, and evolution in terms of human concepts and thinking and planning, that we play a role in what's going to happen in the future. We don't have total control, but we have the ability to observe the evolution of the state of affairs and to manage it in some wise and intelligent way. And that's what Judaism considers divinity. Divinity is about being aware of how things are evolving and acting responsibly, intelligently, and wisely to improve that progression. And so when I say the best English translation of the Heya Asher Heya is becoming, the gerund, as opposed to an awkward phrase like I was what I was, I am what I am, I will be what I will be. I just simply say the highest value in terms of all the values is the phenomenon, the process, and the spirit of becoming is at the top of the list of things we care about. Now that's Judaism. When you get to Christianity, it's a little different. In Christianity, there's multiple definitions of the divine presence or divine spirit, one of which is in the name of the central character of the New Testament. So Jesus is I think the Greek version, but it's in the Aramaic, it's Yehoshua. Now, Joshua is a biblical name, which simply means rescuer or savior, somebody who fixes things that are broken. Okay, and the Yeh is a reference to Yod He Vav He, which is a reference to He Asher He, which is a reference to the phenomenon, the process, and spirit of becoming. So the name of the central character of the New Testament is the process of becoming. The conscientious process of becoming is what will save you from going down the fucking tubes. Okay, now, so the whole point of the New Testament is you have to fix what you did wrong in the past, where when you took the wrong fork in the road and things got worse. You're going to have to think about that and save yourself and go the right way going forward, so as not to continue, going off the edge of the cliff. So the notion of the savior becomes more important in the New Testament than the Old Testament, because we haven't made that many mistakes yet in the Old Testament. So the New Testament, they talk about sin, which is missing the mark, is making bad choices that led to bad outcomes. And so now you have to think about, how are we going to fix that? That's between Judaism and Christianity. Now, other people say, well, no, God is love, or some other, and there's all these different antecedents for the concept of what's divine, what's important, so I tend to like the becoming part, but I also appreciate the healing the world part, the diagnosing what went haywire and conscientiously fixing it as part of your whole gestalt of why I'm on this freaking planet. Okay, and other people say, no, it's love. It's don't hate and don't be violent and don't screw people and don't be corrupt. It's just being ethical and honest and loving and kind. And some people say, well, my religion is kindness. Other people will say, no, for me, it's honesty. And you get all these different variants of what it means to be a good person and not an asshole or a crook. And somehow in this melange of positive behaviors and values, you have this divinity, somebody who's a really good soul. And you can parse them any way you like. It's just, you have this pronoun that can reference any combination of that sort of makes sense in your life at your age and depth and whatever. Go ahead, Sam, you got your hand up.
Well, I want to hear from Sam also, but just one comment. And all of that, I accept that everything you say is useful if one is actually thinking about one's own personal perspective.
Right.
But if we're trying to communicate across the air to another human individual,
right,
then to me, all of that can be done without even alluding to any entity of God. It is all completely meaningful, even without that pronoun. So I'll say more later, but I want to hear what Sam has to say.
Well, many of the things that Barry is saying, I totally agree with it and beautifully said. Thank you. Very structured and very textbook explanation. And I really admire you for that, Barry. So a couple of things I want to point out what it says that, remember we talked about that yesterday, Sam, is that, God is more like a meta perspective. Think of it like United Nations. You look at it from a big picture perspective, zoom in, zoom out kind of thing. Right now, it's zoom out. And you see, are you on the right path? Are you on the wrong path? Did you make mistake? Are you pick the wrong, the sin is like make the wrong choice. It's all meta perspective. And that's very useful perspective, especially with dealing with survival. And to me, it's whether you survive or not, it's your ability to predict what's going to be future. Are you ready for whatever's coming at you? And meta perspective is really tied to your survival. You can't avoid that. So you can think of it as that meta perspective is a born out of necessity. that people realize that unless you have the meta outcome, you won't survive very well. The rate of success of surviving tomorrow is not good at all. So
Well, I accept that if it's still applied personally, right? If that meta perspective allows me to live a better life, more likely to see tomorrow's, sunlight, that's okay by me. I'm completely okay with that. Where I'm not okay with that, and where I think all the discussion about meta or values or mapping to, personal perspectives about cosmology, etc. If you're in that domain, that's where we have to have certain alignment or agreement on what the antecedents, if Barry wants to use that word, or the meaning or the notion, the concept means, okay? And it's useful to have those discussions, because if you're going to use this notion to prescribe to others, not just yourself, but to others, how to live life, then it is not okay that we all each individually have this personal notion of what that God pronoun means. Because guaranteed, if we're not aligned, there's going to be disagreements, and then those lead to disappointments because of missed expectations, and then eventually to conflict, and eventually to, violence. So I think all of that is where I'm really trying to lean in and become curious. And to me, all of the behavior, all of the prescriptions, all of the ethics, all of the systems thinking is all possible, and in my opinion, even better without this pronoun. So I think this pronoun is a temporary, although be it, has lasted for millennia, is a temporary phenomenon that we need to grow through. We need to level up through. We need to evolve from. We need to use as a starting point, but understand that was an old notion. And until we do, we still have people without a proper understanding that has evolved over millennia, controlling what other people do. And that to me is non-optimal. I understand it happens. I understand we have to, watch it, see it, observe it, see its negative effects, and hopefully as a society grow out of it. But until we do, we're still going to be making non-optimal decisions, taking non-optimal action plans, making non-optional investment strategies, etc. And all of that, while we're hurtling towards this wall, beyond which, the planet, or at least our species, is going to be very, very different than what it used to be. And it's not going to sustain life. It's not going to sustain, the multiple species. It's not going to sustain the freedoms that we all want. And that is the urgency by which I say we have to have a conversation about this. If it weren't for that wall, I'd be completely okay with all the stuff that's going on, okay? You would say, okay, fine, it's all apostles are becoming, and it could take long, it could take short, who the fuck cares, okay? But because of that wall, there is a sense of urgency. And that's where I really want to ask the question.
thank you. So let me get this real quick. Okay, so I spent about 20 plus years with UR, United Religious Initiative, for that cause, right? So if I can use that, your cause is a meta perspective. And the meta perspective is God, and this is our regular low-level perspective. So think of it like a GPS. So if I'm the savior of you, I want you to believe me, I want you to use my GPS. Okay. If you use have you ever tried to drive a car with 2 GPSs? You get into trouble because you get conflicted thing and you can get accident, you kill yourself, get yourself into accident. So think of like my principle, my Bible is the only book that you follow. That GPS is accurate, and I want to save your life, so I will forbid you to use another GPS. So think of it that way. So in some way, somebody they don't even have a GPS. Some people have a GPS, is a good thing to have. So you try to convince people you should not use your GPS. You should use the one that everybody synchronized and everybody all that. That's a third level meta perspective. Go for it.
Okay, just let me
There's
look
a
at it.
one key difference, I believe, in this metaphor, in that if I plug in a destination to two different GPSs, even though the route may be different, 99.999% of the time, the destination will still be the same. So
Agree.
I could care less whether or not they go this way or whether they go that way.
The
Okay?
trouble is when you're in the intersection, someone tell you to make a right turn, the other one go left turn. What do?
I don't
That's the
care
problem.
because I know they're going to the same place because I don't care. But you look at this. If I say, here's the Bible, okay, and then here is, let's say, Principia Mathematica, okay? If both of those books exist, and somebody wants to explain something, using this book versus that book, they're not going the same place. The destination is not the same.
They're going to the future. They're going to whatever the future turns out to be.
That is not a proper destination that you plug into a GPS, and that's not a useful designation for where you're trying to go.
That's why GPS is a limited analogy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pointing out, okay?
Yeah.
If I knew that both the Bible and Principia Mathematica will point you to exactly the same place that I want to go, i.e., this enlightenment that you're talking about or consilience that you're talking about, Barry, I'd be completely fine with both. But I know that they're not.
I'm using GPS as assuming you have your destination, I have mine. I haven't gone to the next level where GPS, your destination is not my destination, so you're going to Main Street, I'm going to Broadway. So that's the different perspective. So I'm talking about even if you have the same destination with two GPS, you're going to get your car crashed because you're paying attention to different one. Let me say this differently. You had the bandwidth to say that, yes, this two GPS will get me the same destination. I don't care if I make a right turn or left turn. How many people have the bandwidth? I'm telling you, they don't have the bandwidth. They are in the survival mode. They can only handle one GPS at a time. And some of them don't even have GPS.
If you go out for a Sunday drive, you may not have a particular destination. You just want to go out and sort of look at the autumn leaves or whatever, and if I had a self-driving car, and I wanted to go for a Sunday drive, and I had an intelligent GPS, I would say, take me on a Sunday drive. I don't know any particular place. Just find someplace interesting that you think that would be pleasurable to go and pick it. And the GPS that could have some autonomy might look around and whatever information, think, oh, I'll bet Barry would like to have this drive in this country road to see that, and not the other one is going to be congested. And so I could imagine giving it, just take me someplace interesting. I want to go on a river cruise, pick a river and a cruise where you think it'll be enjoyable. And I'm not going to tell you where I want to end up. I just want to end up having a nice afternoon. And that's not implausible. I can tell ChatGPT, please make a fairy tale kind of about this generic subject, but I don't actually care about the specific fairy tale. Just make one up. An entertaining fairy tale that will be kind of amusing to read. Because if I tell exactly what to write, it's not going to be amusing. I already know what it is. Right? So it's not implausible to ask it to take me into the future where I've never been and can't tell it exactly where I want to end up. Just take me on a journey. Not implausible. So if you go back to this problem with, this pronoun God, some people, recoil at this particular pronoun. Okay, some people say the source. You've heard people talk about the source, or they'll say your higher power. They'll say higher power or source or some other phrase. Like, for example, in Zen Buddhism, they don't have a deity. They have the process of enlightenment is the thing that you're aiming at. And the process of enlightenment says, make things clear and unburdensome to me, but I don't know exactly what it is, and I'm not going to bow down to it. That's just the journey I want to be on, a journey of enlightenment. So consilience is yet another synonym for proceeding towards some kind of improved level of enlightenment. You have a branch of Christianity called Methodism, because there's some method that they're going to follow. In science, we have the protocols of the scientific method. And that's the method that's going to take us to discovery learning that's reliable science, that we don't know what the destination is. We don't know what the law of nature is. We're going to find out, but we're going to find out something by some process is reasonably reliable. In cybernetics, what's the ethical best practice? So you have all these different ways of framing or phrasing the objective, where the objective is somewhat vague. The Tao is vague. The Tao just means the way. It's vague, okay? So you have in human culture, in the 3,500 years of human culture, these pronouns which represent some place that I want to be in the future, which I can't name yet because I haven't been there. I don't know what it looks like, but in some sense, it's going to be better. Find me a better way. So, for example, in Hebrew, one of the references of God is El, E-L, which means most high. The Israeli airline is called El Al. How do you say El Al in English? It's a little bit like up, up, and away. It's to the up. The El Al really means to the up. Okay, so something that's a higher level of value or appreciation or whatever, that's just one of the names of God in Hebrew. Elohim is our highest value, our highest up. Okay, our most high. And no matter what culture you're in, you want to say, I want to get an A+ on this paper or in this course, or I want to put on a Broadway play where we get rave reviews. I want the highest possible accolades. And I don't really know exactly what specific elements of the play are going to get all this applause, but that's my goal. It's vague. And you can give it any vocabulary terms you like. Well, that was a divine performance, Bette Midler. That was divine. And she's known as the divine Bette Midler because she gives divine performances, or Tina Turner, you know, sort of the goddess of rock and roll. So they use these terms to represent the highest level of achievement in some domain. And I don't really care if you say, oh, that was divine, or oh, she's just a goddess, or if you say that was a fabulous performance. Pick your cultural norm of your vocabulary. And if you have to say, well, it's the source of your higher power, because Sam will recoil if you say, you know, that's godlike. Okay, but all right. For me, I can live with consilience. I have to look up the word. I can live with the process of enlightenment. I sort of got to scratch my head at what that really means. I can talk about, well, just becoming the best, you know, be best, you know, Melania, be best. That's another synonym, you know, for, you know, top gun. So there you have it, Sam. I mean, just, you know, go with the flow.
Go for it, Sam. Waiting for you to speak.
We've been going with the flow, and the flow has led us to a situation which, in my view, is pretty untenable, because more and more people who do not have a properly deep understanding of God, i.e. your becoming, or nature, or cosmology, or science.
Your version of the God. Your version of the God.
No. Here's how we talk about this, okay? Let's say humanity has been evolving. I think, you know, other than creationists, you know, most people would accept that humanity has been evolving. So let's map another metaphor, which is, let's say at one point humanity got to like kindergarten stage. Then they got to first grade. Then they got to second grade. Then they got to third grade. Okay, so in kindergarten, they're given fables about Santa Claus and, you know, reindeer and this sort of thing, okay? Maybe somewhere around third grade, they understand, oh, you know, maybe the planet is round. You know, maybe the sun does pull the earth in a certain way. And maybe in high school, then you understand, well, people do have something called like psychology, and, you know, other people do have mental states. And, you know, sometimes I do get angry and sometimes I do get triggered. Actually, it's too ambitious to say high school is where you understand. So anyway, there's an evolution to how people think, to how people understand this world around them, okay? So at some point, let's say 4,000 or 2,000 years ago, somebody wrote down what they knew then and said, okay, here's what we know. Here's how you live life, okay? Okay, let's call that the book, okay? And somebody said, okay, fine. Everybody from here on out needs to operate according to the book. Meanwhile, the rest of society is going through high school, going through college, going through graduate school, and yet there's a group of them that say, no, this book is what needs to control your life. You are not allowed to live your life according to, you know, gravitational curvature, or, you know, Big Bang theories, or, you know, even quantum phenomena, et cetera, okay? And yet these people will take advantage
of GPSs. They'll take advantage of telephones. They'll take advantage of TV. They'll take advantage of air flight, and yet still say, no, that book is the ultimate truth. They don't recognize that the way they live their life and the way they're even privileged to speak how they speak is because of the advances that, you know, high school and college have provided us. So do we want to ever level up and say, hey, maybe that book was good for its time, but now we need a new book? If not, then you're essentially not valuing the progress of science, the progress of leaning into the truth, and indeed, I would say, listening to the very God that you revere. Because if you do not listen to the universe, you're not listening to your God, you're not learning from your God, and you're just living like a second grader or first grader, or worse yet, a kindergartner, because that's all you understand. And that is holding society back. And we got so many people living this way that they still vote and they still control what we do as a society without valuing where we've come through all these other millennia after the book was written. And that is what pulls us back. We now, unfortunately, have gone so far that those people still survive because they have advantage of modern medicine, you know, safety, you know, standards, et cetera, okay? Where back, even in their age, a high percentage of them would fail because they didn't have access to, let's quote, modern medicine, and they would not survive. It was only the, let's say, more advanced of them that could actually survive. The ones that could learn new skills, the ones that could learn at, you know, and say, hey, you know, maybe I've got a better understanding of the rain patterns, the wind patterns, the temperature patterns, you know, I can optimize my survival. But if they do not do so, because they take advantage of what other people have learned, and they still survive, and they still have vote in a non-optimal system called democracy, okay? Then unfortunately, the stupidity of the masses still control the productivity of society. And that is the disaster that I'm really watching, you know, happen all around us. Over.
The worst offenders are called politicians, because the politicians are lawmakers. And the point is that, and I agree with your objection, that people who believe that you should construct a set of laws enforced by a process of punishment for violations.
May I stop you? May I stop you?
Yep.
The problem is they invoke the authority of this God. They invoke the authority of this thing that most people cannot agree on. And yet they claim power through that authority. And that's so baseless that I cannot imagine us leveling up until we get rid of that fault in society. We have to have a reverence for truth, not for God. We have to have a reverence for the scientific method, the means of listening to the universe and learning from the universe. And if we don't do that, we're still kindergartens, hitting a wall at breakneck speed, and we have no way of putting the brakes on the vehicle, okay? And what I'm trying to say is we need brakes, we need a steering wheel, we need, you know, airbags, and yet, you know, all these people want to do is just tell us how to live our life, not understanding that there's a wall right there. That is our problem. Over.
Sam, the first introduction of this God character appears in the Garden of Eden story, an allegory that appears in the first couple of chapters of Genesis. And the God character gives exactly one directive to Adam and Eve. One directive. That's it. What's the directive?
Don't eat the apple.
The apple, which is a storybook symbol that represents what abstraction?
But no, most people don't know that.
Go ahead and say it.
The tree of knowledge.
Of?
The tree
Finish
of
it.
knowledge.
Of? Come on, finish the expression. It's not just the tree of knowledge, period. It's the tree of knowledge of?
The world.
No. Do you know, Sam Chan?
I don't know.
God gives what the God of Adam and Eve gives them an express directive, exactly one. It's rule number one. Actually, it's rule number 0. It's rule number 0. Rule number 0 is do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Why? Because if you make an axis of good and evil, so it's saintly good and demonic evil, and you make this axis where you can reckon things along a dimension, a metrical dimension of good and evil, what are stupid humans going to do? They're going to divide it in fucking half. And they're going to say on this half of the line is good, and on that half of the line is evil. And then what are they going to do? They're going to make rules to say, don't do things on that half.
That
And
might
if
have been
you were
okay
gonna-
2,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago, Barry, but we've evolved beyond that.
How come you didn't know the name of the rule
Because
zero
it's
that
irrelevant
God
to
gave
my life.
humans? Huh?
I don't need to know that.
Do you know that God says, don't make any laws? Don't make any human civil laws. It's a fucking mistake.
And yet what did Moses do, right? He had 10 laws.
They don't have or else clauses. They don't have or else clauses. Take a look. There are no or else we'll beat the shit out of you clauses at the end. They're goals without or else clauses. That's the difference between the 10 Commandments and the Code of Hammurabi. It has or else we'll kill you, we'll beat you, we'll put you in jail, we'll violate the hell out of you.
Barry, most people have consequences when they talk about Moses's laws.
What happens if you tell a lie?
It depends on the society you're in, right?
If I disclose a falsehood that I know is a falsehood, and it causes you to do something which is foolish,
Yep.
that's a bad thing to do.
Yeah, that's called perjury, right? At least in some form.
But the point is that the 10 Commandments says, do not bear false witness. It doesn't say, or we will put you in jail. It just says, don't do it, because it's not a good thing to do. It's going to cause some kind of bad outcome automatically. There's going to be an automatic bad outcome. It's not that we're going to have a judge and a jury that said you committed perjury and therefore you have to go to jail or pay a fine. There's no or else clause in the 10 Commandments. It just says, here are things to strive for and here are things to repel from, but there's no or else clause. There's no human imposed punishment.
Okay, Barry,
we're not-
do you believe that most practicing church-going people believe what you just said? Do you truly
No,
believe that?
because they don't actually follow what it says in the book, because the politicians who set the rules didn't follow what it says in the book. The book says, don't do that. You're going to kill each other. Literally, it's what it says. Don't do it. You're going to start killing each other. The very first rule is don't make any rules that have or else clauses. That's a mistake. It's a math error. It's a friggin' math error. In cybernetics, we do not say, if this computer misbehaves, I'm going to beat the shit out of it with a Maxwell silver hammer. No, that ain't going to improve it. I'm going to diagnose and correct the error with some kind of mercy and kindness and insight and diagnostic reasoning. And humans, these stupid ass pieces of carbon, say, oh no, if it misbehaves, I'm going to beat the shit out of it. God said, don't do that. Don't do that, guys. This ain't going to work. It ain't going to work.
I like your metaphor, because in software, if I diagnose a bug, I'm going to shut down the previous program, I'm going to modify it, then I'll launch a new program, right? So the
Exactly.
old program no longer exists. So if you look at the way evolution has occurred, okay, if some mutation results in some biological error, that species, or maybe even that instance, that being in that species will get shut down, because it's going to encounter a situation where it's not going to behave for survival. Okay.
Right.
So yes, the same thing happens. Okay. It does get deleted, and a modified version, perhaps an improved version, takes its place.
Yeah.
Okay. So your analogy is apt.
Now, I'll tell you a funny
But-
story.
Wait.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think this notion of rules being bad is another one that I would like to lean into, probably at a different time, but it's very much
Okay.
related. I understand that, okay? Because in your view, you say rules lead to chaos. In my
Yeah.
view, yes, often they do, but they're not guaranteed to lead to chaos.
No,
And if you think that they are guaranteed to lead to chaos, we have a discussion to have.
stochastically, yes.
Yes, right.
Stochastically, yes.
Right. The problem is that if you do not augment your knowledge, the foundation of these rules, based on the new experiences, the new insights, the new instruments that you build that actually have finer, capabilities. If you do not alter your rules or protocols based on what you learn,
Right.
then I agree with you. Okay. It's just like, rather than third grade, I'm going to stop at eighth grade. Same metaphor.
Right.
You have to have this learning mindset. And that is what I think, in my opinion, according to my observations, is not supported or even condoned by many people who practice quote unquote religion. Look at what's going on in fucking Florida.
He's a
They're
scientist. He's an
banning
asshole.
books,
He's an
they're
idiot.
banning poetry, they're banning Disney, they're banning, rational thought.
Yeah.
This is what's done when you're actually trying to cram all of society's learnings into like a third grade book.
You know what rhino
Which most
means?
people don't
Book in
even
a name
read.
only? You
You have to get
Christians in
told
name
what's in the
only.
book on Sundays. Okay? That's
Sam,
what
if
I think is a problem.
Sam, if you can have a rhino, Republican in name only, you can have a sino, Christian in name only. And most Christians are Christians in name only. They do not follow the teachings of Jesus, because the teachings of Jesus is the teachings of an advanced systems thinker. They don't get advanced systems thinking
But
any more than
Barry,
they get
so
our systems thinking.
I am trying to shine a light. Maybe another metaphor is shoot an arrow at the source of all of this.
Source is an inadequate piece of carbon up here.
No. There's a commonly shared source which people cite in this God item. Okay, they say, oh, it's a personal God. Well, yeah, keep it personal. Don't tell me what to do because of your personal God. Don't tell Barry what to do. Don't tell Sam what to do because of your personal God. That's where we get into problems. And this is a real problem, which is why I'm not just going to let it go. As a society, we have to either solve this, or millennia from now, there's going to be insects here, not us. Okay? Some other form, but it's not going to be us.
Why do you think Mohandas K. Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Yehoshua of the New Testament disobeyed the law of the clerics? Why do you think they intentionally disobeyed? Non-violently, by the way. Why did they adopt the practice of non-violent civil disobedience? What was by the way, Socrates and Galileo too? Why did those 5 individuals who are famous in history adopt a practice of non-violent civil disobedience with respect to the human imposed rules and laws? Why?
Because this is the only way.
Because what?
It is the only way.
Yeah, the nonviolent civil disobedience is the method, the way, the Tao, the insight to overthrow the stupid mistake of the rule of law. The stupid fucking mistake, original sin was what it was called, humankind's original logic error, HOLE, humankind's original logic error. And how many people have a hole in their head? Most of them. Most of them have humankind's original logic error, math error, sitting up here running their brain. They have a hole in their head. Humankind's original logic error. Go ahead, Sam.
Can I try a metaphor for you?
So, a metaphor?
Yes, let me give you a metaphor, okay?
Sure.
You would not give an AR-15 to a 3-year-old, right?
I wouldn't give it to anybody. I
Exactly.
wouldn't give it to a policeman either, or a
So
soldier.
imagine this. You would not expect a 3-year-old to be able to use mathematics.
Right.
And yet, at some point, when you get to high school or college or grad school, you could probably utilize mathematics to some benefit. So there is a way to look at this and say, yeah, the guidance of don't give primitive peoples, primitive thinking, powerful weapons. I can understand that advice. But if you have a powerful tool called mathematics, would you withhold it? No, you wouldn't, right? You would use it to build systems like the GPS we're talking about. You would use it to build vehicles that actually, take us from here to there.
Right.
You would use it to improve those vehicles generation after generation.
You and me
You
and
would actually use it to look at human phenomena and how we get along with each other and even derive ethics from it.
Absolutely.
You would not keep it out of the hands of the people.
Yeah.
So don't keep holding on to this metaphor that says, I'm not going to give an AR-15 or even an M16 to a 3-year-old. But at some point, someone who is trained could use that effectively. So understand that is a very useful metaphor in my mind. Over.
I'm going to show you something. You know,
Wait. Please. I'm really curious about this. I do not want to defocus from this because so often you say, oh, live and let live. Okay. Yeah, we've done that. It's not working because the stupid people are propagating. And stupid thinking is propagating. So I have to start, targeting the engine room of that, vehicle that's carrying all these stupid people. Okay. And that engine room, believe it or not, has all these labels of God all around it. And that's where I'm saying that's dangerous.
Sam,
Sam,
do you know who Ethan Siegel is? Does anybody here know who Ethan Siegel is? A science educator. He writes mostly about cosmology, and his articles appear in a online website called Big Think. You know about Big Think, right?
Yeah.
So he's one of the contributors of Big Think, and every week he writes an article on some deep topic in cosmology. And there was one that just came out a couple of days ago. And the thing about Big Think is that they support it by having ads embedded in the middle of articles. I'm going to show you something that I saw.
But can you help me out, Barry? How is that connected to my question?
You'll see as soon as I share it. Are you able to see this where my mouse is?
yeah.
Here's my messenger, my private messenger to Ethan Siegel. I was rather startled and chagrined to find this ad inserted in the middle of your article on the Big Think. Look at the ad. I don't know if you can read it.
Yep.
I can see.
This is an article. This is an ad for a bunch of toy weaponry for children. And I paused from reading his article and I went to and I said, Ethan, do you know that Big Think is advertising these toy advanced weaponry to children? And he says, did you report the ad if you found it inappropriate? And I write, I wanted to run it by you first, because if you don't mind having ads peddling advanced weapon system models to children, then my complaint isn't going to go anywhere. Now, here's a guy who's a fabulous scientist and educator. Now, he doesn't know what the ads are because the ads are inserted haphazardly. So he wasn't necessarily going to see them. But I said, holy shit, what is Big Think doing putting in these ads for these AR? Well, I don't know if they're AR-15s, but they're something.
Barry, do you know that this ad was specifically designed for you based on your visiting history?
Well, first of all, I don't buy toys.
No, the reason I'm bringing it up is that he will not see that ads.
I know. The thing is, I know that if I reload
it's different for whoever is the reader.
Sorry?
It's different per reader.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ads are inserted randomly without regard to the reader. So,
No, it's not random. It's not random. It's very targeted.
Why would it be sending an ad to me to buy toy weapons for children? I'm 70 years old. I have no children.
There's a faulty in logic. The reason I can say that is because I search certain product on it and then I go to certain thing, it will try to sell me the thing I just searched or send an email about something. Right. It's very targeted.
Why would it? The only reason it would know that I'm against weaponry is because I've said I'm against weaponry.
Well, because of that,
weaponry for children.
It misread the word against. Maybe they ignore the word against.
All right, Nomi Klein that doesn't know the word not.
Yeah, that's right.
If I say I don't like something, it's going to give me an ad for something that I don't like.
It's called lazy programmer. It's looking for a keyword. They don't look for the negation.
But you see my point, Sam, is that it's not just saying don't believe it. It's saying there is something fucking wrong with our culture.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Now we've all agreed with that. We all agree that our culture is.
No, we're not all in agreement with it because I'm getting a lot of pushback when I say what I say.
We, three of us,
not
even among us.
Well, I'm going to make 2 points here. First of all, when you use the word "people are stupid," I want to ask you: is that discrimination? Do you think they have a choice to being stupid? They rather be smart as you and making as much money as you.
Choose to not.
Okay, that's one. Okay, that's one. Second one is I'm a biggest advocate of what I call don't waste your time and energy to forgive someone. Focus all your energy in making sure that whatever happened to you doesn't happen again. And that's what a lot of things that Barry was talking about. The energy should be focused on, don't make the law to prevent something from happening, to make sure that the structure doesn't happen.
I love that suggestion because it's perfectly wise. If one is looking at one life, if I'm looking at one life and optimizing my life, I completely agree with you. The wisest people in the world have been saying this. But in my opinion, and I humbly state this, that is not systems level thinking. Systems level thinking says, what happens if everybody lives like that? What happens to all of society if everyone lives like this? See, the wise people, they'll actually go by their own way and they'll, say, okay, well, let them be whatever they are, But the problem is that percentage of people is growing faster than the people who are concerned about the environment or concerned about people's welfare or concerned about children dying or women being raped. It's that group of people that just want to be comfortable, just want to go to brunch on Sundays, just want to go to church on Sundays. And in the meantime, they go and, do whatever they're doing that is just not supporting the likely survival of the species 5 or 7 generations from now, let alone 1,000. Okay. The problem is, in my mind, it's perfect advice for a single individual, but it's not systemic thinking. Over.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you get systemic thinking? Now, Ethan Siegel is a fabulous systemic thinker on cosmology. He maybe never bothered to notice that the medium he's using, a big think, is also peddling toy guns to children. He may not be aware of that. Now, I make him aware of that. I'm bearing accurate witness. I give him a picture of the ad embedded in his article, and I say, are you copacetic with this? He doesn't know it. So now the thing is that if I lodge a complaint, it's going to go nowhere because it's going to be lost in the noise. If he, as the author, says, why are you putting guns for children in the middle of my article on cosmology? That might actually go someplace.
I suggest that you can do what you can do.
I did what I did. I bore
No.
To
that was
Ethan.
right that you brought it up with Ethan.
Right.
But you could also just lodge a complaint, just report that.
And I probably will.
Yeah,
I wrote
exactly.
to him,
and that's what you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
I said,
We're all
first I
little
want to
hummingbirds.
run it by you, because if you don't think it's a problem, then neither will Big Think. And they'll brush me off.
Well,
That's
he
an
doesn't
easy
control
prediction.
the advertising methods. He doesn't control the stochastics by saying what Chan was indicating.
Well, I'm just going to tell you a couple of things. You may notice that the same ad follow you everywhere you go. Okay,
Yep.
That's one thing I want you to be aware of.
Same ad for what?
The same ads, the toy gun will
Follows you
follow
across
wherever
websites.
Will
you
follow
visit.
me.
Yeah, follow you.
Well, then they're wasting. I mean, that's great. They're wasting their money because I ain't going to buy any toy guns.
I understand that. I'm just saying
The
that.
thing is
you
I don't
follow-
want them. It's not that I don't want them to waste their money promoting it to me. I don't want them to spend their money promoting it to anybody.
Follow you. The reason I brought that up is because that's the way that the program is written. That's
But
what
all
people
that
want you to
means
do.
is- all
If
that
I
means is they'll spend more of their money targeting it to people who will buy those stupid guns.
agree, I have many friends that have spent a lot of advertising money and they're not getting money back. That's why marketing is such a difficult thing to do.
So from a point of view of a practical solution, is it better to have them waste their money bombarding me with ads I'm going to throw away? Or is it better for me to tell them not to send me those ads so they can send them to people who might end up buying the product?
If you really want them to waste their money, click on their ads. Click on all their ads. Waste their money. Don't buy their product. Just
Well,
click on it.
that's the practicum. Now that's being dishonest. That is
No, it's not being
intentionally
dishonest. How is it being dishonest?
because it gives them a signal that I care about that product.
No,
and
it doesn't. All it says is you clicked on the ad.
because I'm interested in the product.
No, that's their assumption.
Yes, it's a plausibly predictable interpretation.
So what?
So I am dissimulating on purpose to lure them into spending their money wastefully.
And you want them to waste their money,
And
right?
it keeps Ethan Siegel alive. and it wastes a lot of my time because I got to keep diverting them. Instead of reading Ethan Siegel's article, I got to go and fool the Big Think ad people That's not, I don't think that's the best practice. It is a
No,
practice.
I'm not saying it's a best practice. I'm saying that's one way of looking at it.
I
You
understand
want
that.
them to waste
Question
their
is,
money.
what is
That's
the,
one
what
way
is
of
the
doing
best
it.
practice? What is the best practice? First, point out to Ethan Siegel this phenomenon they may not be aware of. Then talk to you guys about what's the best practice, because I'm not sure what the best practice is. And then say, among all the possible practices, which one is most efficacious for all parties concerned? I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't even know if there is an answer to that.
If you want to know the best practice, my best practice advice for you is that ask ChatGPT to give you a plugin on your browser so they will suppress all the ads that's showing up. That way you don't have to deal with it. You don't have to see it. It's away from you. You can
Well,
browse the web without the ads.
I could tell my browser without displaying it to me behind the scenes, click on the ad, bring it up in a dead end in a dev null. I could tell
Whatever, yeah.
bring it up in a dev null that I don't see, but it causes them to, I could do that. Now
Yeah.
the question is that ethical?
Whatever the least amount energy and the easiest, and it work consistently for you.
Yeah, because for example, suppose I establish the practice that something I don't like, what I want my browser to do behind the scenes is to click on it, pull up the article, get a hit, get a, an eyeball, a fake eyeball, and throw it away. And I think, well, now what suppose people are doing that for my articles on my blog? Is that same practice going to be hard if other people do it to me because they don't like articles on systems thinking?
Not too many people know what
maybe all those Christians in name only are going to use the same stupid technique to blind out my work. I have to think about it. What if they mirror the same practice?
they don't know how to do that. Remember,
No.
you're the only one that's smartest among all the people in the community.
All they have to do is copy the prompt. If Chrome browser offers that as a feature, and I say, rat fuck this kind of an ad, then anybody can say rat fuck anything Barry wrote. And more of them will say rat fuck anything Barry wrote than I will say rat fuck ads.
You're thinking too much.
That's systems thinking. You say, is this a practice that I would be happy if other people adopted the same practice? And the answer is,
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't want this rat fucking protocol to become a phenomenon because I'm going to be on the receiving end of the rat fucking.
Unless you support this system, the systems collapse, just like your friend will not be able to publish it because nobody will be paying them to whatever. So
how far in the future do I have to look to come up with an ethical best practice that's sustainable?
Yep.
And that ain't easy.
Yep.
I want to model sustainable ethical best practices, not short-term ones that will fix this one case, but in the long run, sarcastically make it worse.
Yeah.
I don't want an iatrogenic solution
Yeah.
that compounds the problem in the future.
Right.
And that ain't easy to figure out.
Yeah.
Sam and I have an education in systems thinking, and you have a practical career in systems thinking, and this ain't easy.
Yeah, I agree.
And yelling at people, which we're all, both of them, Sam and I are both doing here today, is probably not the best practice either. It's probably a counterproductive practice. And I have to learn not to do things which are short-sighted, which only exacerbate the problem in the long run, as opposed to fixing it in one instance of the near term.
Yeah. I just want to share with you guys that even with these small things like this, we haven't have no way to get an agreement with it easily. And when you talk about GOD, there's such a meta perspective.
What am I going to do?
It's
Put in
hopeless.
brackets, God,
Impossible.
higher power, the source. In source of it, I'm going to put in this long list and say pick whichever synonym you're happy with. I'm not going to put in a set with a bunch of synonyms and pick the synonym. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
because I don't know which synonym you're going to resonate with.
And by the way, I have the same objection to LOVE.
LODE.
yeah. Another big words, another lazy words.
Yep.
Yes.
LODE. What's LODE?
LOVE.
Oh, love. LOVE.
Yeah.
Yeah, love is one of those words that can mean damn near anything or practically nothing. These are so what Mincy called them suitcase words. They're such like the Tao, the way.
Yeah.
It's such a broad word. It's basically like saying the universe. The universe is the biggest, the name of the biggest class, or cosmos, name of the biggest class. Well, okay, then it could be damn near anything. And specifically, what the hell? I haven't, somewhere in the cosmos, there's the best thing to do. Yeah, that's true. Somewhere, somewhere it's it's a meaningless word.
But nowadays we use the word
Stacy is one who's using so damn many pronouns that I go, what the hell is the antecedent? What's the concrete antecedent of that pronoun? The answer is, I haven't a clue. Now, she may have something in mind, but I don't know what she has in mind.
And Sam, you were about to say something?
I just say that the biggest word nowadays is AI, quantum. Those are the big words, AI and quantum. Yeah, those are big words. I was like,
yeah, they're 25-cent words that don't have an antecedent that actually is concrete for any given application of the metaphor.
So I think it was yesterday or the day before, I posted something which I think has drawn a few comments. And I think if I remember, it goes something like, AI is like God. If you understand how it works, it's not AI.
That was true of the word intelligence, or in general, that once you understand something, then it becomes pedestrian. If you don't understand it, it's magic. They use, that Arthur C. Clarke, that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If you don't understand it, it's magic. And if you understand it, it's a piece of technology and you can manage it. How many people go in?
That's what I'm trying to suggest. That's what I'm trying to suggest about this God notion. Okay.
It's a little late.
Understand the universe.
It's
If
a
you
little
listen
late.
to the universe, if you observe, if you listen, if you touch, if you get feedback from it, okay, and you understand, here's how leaves fold, here's how the wind blows, here's how temperature cycles work, if you understand that, you have a deeper understanding of this, whatever thing it is, it's called nature, okay?
Yeah.
But if you want to equate nature to God, then you better listen to God.
Right.
Because if you don't, then you're essentially not learning from God. And oh, by the way, listening to God is what science is.
Yeah. Jefferson puts nature's God, the phrase nature's God, in the Declaration of Independence. I think it's in the Declaration of Independence. You talk about nature's God. Einstein referred to the old one. Was that what his phrase? He had some phrase for, the old one.
No, he was more aligned with Spinoza's God,
Exactly. Spinoza's God is a list of abstract traits, or abstract qualities that we revere as high values. It was a long list of values like mercy and kindness, and I'm just confabulating here because I don't remember them. But he had a long list of well, Socrates talked about virtue, right? Didn't Socrates have all these dialogues? So Socrates talk about virtue. Now, virtue is this umbrella word. It's a suitcase word. What is an example of a virtue? Okay, is criticizing somebody for a mistake a virtue? Probably not. Okay, is praising somebody for doing something really well a virtue? Probably is. Is yelling somebody a virtue? Probably not. Is AI whispering a virtue? Maybe it is. So the whole idea is that you have this thing called virtue, and I revere virtue. But what the hell is a virtue?
Okay,
you got to ask yourself, is that a virtuous thing to do, or is that a foolish thing to do? Or a counterproductive thing to do? An iatrogenic thing to do? If it's iatrogenic, it's not virtue. Is it a therapeutic thing to do? I hope so. How do I know? Is it an example of the Severide effect, that the solution today is going to be tomorrow's problem? Virtue is really hard to nail down because the time horizon is what determines. When you integrate over the time horizon, is it a net plus at the end of the day, or at the end of the epoch? Or does it lead to extinction at the end of the epoch?
Severide's problem exists if you don't have a learning mindset. If you have a learning mindset, and you're constantly revising the systems and subsystems that we're evolving together, then yesterday's problem can evolve into today's solution,
right,
and tomorrow's solution, and next week's solution.
Yeah.
But if you don't choose that learning mindset, and oh, by the way, that's what scientific method is a learning mindset.
If you don't have a learning mindset, then yes, no matter what system you come up with, if you pound it into concrete, it's going to be obsolete at some time.
Yes, pretty soon. Pretty soon it's obsolete. And look what happens here. The operating system updates, Zoom updates, and after every update, there's glitches because first of all, we don't know how to use the new version because it's got different interface. And second of all, there's glitches in it. So was it a good idea to do an update on Zoom quickly and add features that are broken? Or should we have evolved it more slowly and gradually so that people can adapt to the improvements without getting lost in a broken system that's better on paper, but worse in practice?
Parenthetically, the open source phenomena and community have learned about this. So they have unstable releases and they have stable releases.
Right.
Just to put a placeholder out there, people have learned how to do this.
Yeah, it's not easy. You got people who are super geeks who understand what a beta version is, what an alpha version is, what a stable version is, and how to assess before they release it what level of stability it's at. That ain't easy to do. These people are basically spending their 24/7 reckoning this kind of a thing. Is it timely to, they put out OpenAI ChatGPT. Some people said that was too soon. Other people said, no, it was the right time. Who's to know whether or not it was a mistake to release it early as opposed to wait until everything is safe? And I don't know the answer to that. People are debating whether or not that was smart or stupid. I'm using it as productively as I know how to use it. So when somebody writes a paragraph and I can't parse it because it's full of gibberish and misspellings and whatever, I'll throw it in ChatGPT and I'll say, pull out the words in this thing that you can recognize as words and guess the ones that are misspelled and the ones that are related stochastically, and give me what your best impression is of the sentiment of this paragraph. And it can do that better than I can. When I go, what the hell did that person just say? ChatGPT does a pretty damn good job of giving me a plausible summary of at least what it's about, if not what the predicate was. Did I lose you or not?
I'm still here.
Okay. I have been engaged in the practice just quite recently since ChatGPT 4, thanks to Sam Chan, of taking a passage where I go, what the hell did that person just say? Giving it to ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, do you know what this person just said? And it'll give me something that's at least I can read and understand. And I'll say, this is what ChatGPT thought you said. I couldn't do active listening on it. I don't know what you said. ChatGPT thought it knew what you said. Is it okay? If I give that to Esteban, he says, no, that's completely wrong. If I give it to Stacy, she says, well, that's not bad. It's not exactly, but it's close. You know, and people say, you nailed it. That's useful to me and to them. Okay. Now, is that a good use of ChatGPT? Some people say, I don't want to hear from an AI. I got people say, I want a button that says no way. I only want carbon units. I don't want any AIs. And I'll say, forget it, because I'm now transhuman. Half of me is now relying on ChatGPT to parse English where it ain't English.
I don't know how to put it this way. So, and never someone tell me you should not do this or should not do that. I like to ask that, under what condition?
I just say, non serviam, I am not your obedient servant. I said that to Stacy twice when she said, Barry, you have to do this. And I write, non serviam, which is Latin, not at your service. I am not, in English, I am not your obedient servant.
Well, I mean, if you can say that, but then you sort of not be able to get a gift of it. The way I say it's like, under what conditions, be more specific if you can help me with that. But if you cannot come out with any under any condition, then I will throw that in the trash because it's no longer serving me.
But basically, when I do nonviolent civil disobedience, I say I am disobeying your directive. I'll say I'm not going to follow that directive. Don't expect me to do what you just told me to do. I'm not going to do it. It's against my ethics or principles or whatever, my free will or whatever you want to say the reason is. I decline to follow your guidance.
I hear that. I understand. But the thing is, from my perspective, if someone give me the attention and want to say that to me, that means they love me, they care about me, they want me to do having the best. So I want to receive the gift. So I just need to unwrap the package or help me to assemble the usefulness of whatever they have. So I call that, if I have a judgment against somebody, I'm like this with them. And unless I'm in their shoe, nobody in a stranger says, Barry, you should do this. I mean, nobody would do that. The reason they tell Barry you should do this is because they notice something, they think they can help you, and they care about you, and they want you to do this out of, I don't care, it's motherly love or friendly love or whatever it is.
If they say, Barry, if you do this gesture X, I predict this will be the outcome. That's fine. That's a prediction based on an hypothesis and a model. They can give me their model saying, I think that this behavior will lead to that outcome. You can consider it and see if you agree. Or you might find a different model that leads to a different outcome. Which one are you comfortable with? If I'm not comfortable with the prediction, but if they say you should do this, period, they don't say this is the anticipated outcome, check my model, do the epistemology first. Okay. And I will basically say, thanks, but no thanks. I don't expect that the outcome is what you pray for. I told you that story yesterday. I can follow your ritual just fine. I just don't believe that the outcome is what you pray for. I told you that story, right? Yesterday or day before or whatever. In the courtroom. I could sit in the jury and run the whole bloody ritual, but I don't think it's going to improve this guy's future behavior. I think it's going to make it worse. That's my model. Sam, you were going to say something. That's Sam.
Well, I was just because I'm selfish, I wanted to loop this back to the question I asked at the beginning of the session, which is tautologies.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why the tautology is useful, because we've established that this notion of becoming, if you equate it with this God, is, in my opinion, superfluous. This becoming is just going to happen anyway. So why attribute it to this God thing, which has different antecedents, as you mean, different models, different facts, different opinions in different minds.
Right.
And yet, if you continue to refer to this God, as opposed to becoming, we can reason perfectly fine about becoming. But if you refer to this God, at any conversation, guaranteed, you're going to hit a misalignment. And if you assume that you're in agreement when there actually is misalignment, that's going to lead to disappointment, guaranteed, at some point in the future. Okay. Yeah. So I think it is not, in my opinion, okay, the way I see it, is not a useful construct. And if you want to talk about becoming, then was, is, will be, those are all tautological. What uses of it can we actually, derive from that statement, other than it is what it is, it was what it was, it will be what it will be. I mean, it's just on its surface already tautological. And tautologies, I mean, how do you extract the meaning out of tautology? How do you extract useful insight out of tautology? Over.
Let me answer your question. In my blog article called The Spirit of Becoming, where I use this becoming and whole thing, I use the word God, G-O-D, literally spelled out twice. The proper name of the God of Moses is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which means becoming. That is to say, the name of the God of Moses is nominally equivalent to an abstraction that in English would be the process of becoming. Hang on a second, hang on, I'm not done yet. Or just becoming for short. And that's the only time I use the word. Then I go in and unpack becoming as the principle that I want to focus on. But I used historical reference, because when you're doing science, you reference the history that you're building on. And it would be inappropriate for me to not say, this is where I'm starting from. I'm starting from a 3,500-year-old reference. And then I don't use the word. I talk about, I reckon it's unbecoming not to believe in becoming. What is divine in living systems is becoming, the phenomenon of growth, transformation, and maturation. Let me elaborate. The process of creation of the cosmos. the process of evolution in the biosphere, the process of enlightenment in the noosphere, the discovery learning process in the brain and the mind, the creative process in the arts, the problem-solving process in engineering, the peace process in human culture, the nurturing process in relationships, the healing process in human spirit, the process of falling in love with life and people. That's my definition of becoming. And I only introduced it because how did I get the word in the first place? I decoded the name of the deity of Moses. That's my starting point, and I have to say that.
Okay, acknowledged. But may I gently suggest that that's not where you stop, okay? In other words, I've heard you reference this becoming notion dozens of times.
Yep.
Every time I talk about this notion of the universe, of, evolution, of, naturalness of becoming, you constantly refer back to the beginning. We've established this. So it's not just a place to start from. It evidently is a crucial piece of your discussion of this GOD or becoming business. So it's not where you start from. It's still here. It's still present in your mind. So to me, I'm still asking, why is it relevant?
It's relevant because in science, you give credit to who inspired you to think about something. It's the source of the inspiration that led me to do this thinking. And I can't pretend that I came up with this out of thin air. I didn't. I am, by ethically, I have to say, this is where the idea got implanted in my mind when I was a child.
Well established, Barry. Well established.
To you, because we meet every week. But the average person that I talk to, they don't know that unless I say it. I don't throw away the reference simply because it's a different audience.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah, one perspective I want to make sure I'm sure you're aware of it. I just want to point it out so that coming from this perspective. Anytime you have a sentence that have multiple suitcase words, we are in trouble.
Right. Why do you think I made that list of what, a 10 or so? I'm counting.
Just catch yourself counting how many suitcase words you're using in the sentence.
Yes.
I listed all the items in the suitcase. Okay, these are examples of instances of becoming. This is what I mean when I say becoming. Okay. Now, that is perfectly secular and academic and scholarly and maybe inspirational. Okay, maybe has affect to it. Probably does. I would hope so, because it wants to motivate people to embrace some consilience. Okay, but it didn't come out of nowhere. We are Homo sapiens, but we didn't start out being Homo sapiens. We're mammals. We started out of the first mammals, where the mammals come from, and you acknowledge that. You don't pretend it didn't. Don't say we didn't come from monkeys or whatever the shibboleth is. Yes, we are Homo sapiens. We are at this stage of evolution, and this is how it came to be. That's what it was. This is what it is. This is where we're going, I hope. And that's simply awareness of the time evolution of reality. And let's not kid ourselves. Let's not pretend it's anything other than what it is.
I'll tell a little story. It may take about 2 minutes, okay? I hope it makes a point. When I was a senior at college, and I was still trying to, finish with my degree in 4 years, I had to take a general ed class, because my math courses had already been satisfied. So I decided to take a political science class, okay? And for the term paper, I decided to write on Taiwanese independence. So I did a lot of research. I wrote a 35-page paper, and the professor actually recommended that I have it published. For other reasons, I'll note that it didn't ever get published. But part of the research encountered a story where somebody from Amnesty International was sent to Taiwan to witness the political trial of this newspaper article. His name was Mingde. What was his last name? Forget his last name. Mingde was his first name. Anyway, he was put on trial, and the government didn't want him to publish these critiques of the ROC government anymore. And so when the trial begins, this professor, who didn't understand Chinese, had to have a translator sit next to him, okay? And so in the preamble, the introductory remarks, he's listening to what's going on. The translator is translating to him. And at one time he leans over and says, so what are they doing right now? And the translator says they're citing legal precedent, this case versus that case and the principle hearing. And he says, okay, so when was this precedent established? And the guy says, oh, about 2,000 years ago. They're citing legal precedent. But you'll notice as the trial goes on, you don't have to cite it any further, okay? As the trial goes on, you never make further reference again.
Right.
It's the point that you made, okay? Which is you have to understand where this came from, but
Right.
they didn't spend the entire rest of the trial citing that precedent.
Right.
What
And
I
the rest of the article
observe is every
never
time I
mentions it.
bring up this topic, though, you continually go back to this precedent, which doesn't allow us to go further in the evolution, the elaboration of this notion of becoming. Okay? And that's
Take
what I'm
it to the
curious
next
about.
level. I'm not stopping. Take it to the next level after I listed, what, a dozen examples of it. Can you think of more examples that didn't come to mind?
I'm saying we don't need to go back to this God and Yahweh and Elohim and becoming notion.
That was the first two
Established it well.
sentences, and that was the last I mentioned in this article. The
No, I
rest of the
mean in
article
our
is about-
conversations, it's mentioned frequently, is what I'm saying.
because we have to. You asked me where did it come from? Why am
No, I
you
didn't.
asked me why?
No, I
You
didn't.
asked me why am I saying I
No,
was what I was?
I didn't
you
ask
asked
that.
me.
I didn't ask that, Barry.
What did
I
you,
asked,
you said
why
it's
is it still
tautology.
relevant? I asked,
You said
why
it's
is it still
tautology.
relevant?
Oh, why? That's a different question. Yeah, the answer why
I
is it
asked
relevant?
that. I did ask that.
I will tell you why it's relevant. And this is in Daniel Schmachenberger's 3-hour thingy. He says, we get focused very narrowly on something and we lose track of the big picture. And when you get focused on something, you think that something which is going to be good in this narrow focused domain is the right answer. And Schmachenberger says, but you haven't thought about the knock-on effects as you widen out. And you have to think of the knock-on effects
This is
as
the
you
horse that
widen
ran
out.
away story.
Sorry,
This is the horse that ran away story.
I don't know that story.
I'll tell it after you make your point.
So the point is that if you widen out to the broader picture, what is the scope of the broad picture that you're ignoring when you're tightly focused in on the immediate problem right now? And the point is that when you widen out to the wider picture, you get the most abstract, most general perception. And you have to name it, because I can't say, well, there's this wider perspective and let it go, because that's not a pronoun that you don't know what I'm talking about. So when I widen out to the widest perspective, I have to mention the antecedent.
People already got a name for that.
Yeah. And I give it one of the names that you're happy with.
Okay. I'd be happy with calling it nature or the universe.
If somebody brings up Sagan, I say, Sagan says the cosmos is all that there is or ever was or ever will be.
Yep.
But Sagan didn't make up that definition out of whole cloth.
How do you know?
As it happens, it is verbatim the name of the deity of Moses. Interestingly,
Anybody can come up with
3,500
tautology.
years ago. What?
Anybody can come up with tautologies.
Yes. And some people come up with interesting tautologies, which make you stop and think. Other people come up with banal tautology. It is what it is. That's kind of banal.
No, it's the
Because
same thing as it is what it is. It was what it was. It will be what it will be. It's exactly the same, Barry.
Because it adds the time evolution dimension. It's not, this pen is what it is, end of story. No, this pen was originally a piece of marking on a piece of paper, and then it was a pencil and graphite. And so a writing instrument wasn't just, it is what it is. There's a whole evolution to writing instruments, which ends up with not even having a writing instrument. I'm keyboarding on an information network. So when I say it is what it is, like there's only one thing called a pen. It doesn't have a history or a future. Not, you say, well, the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, that's a metaphor, because when they say pen, they don't mean physical pen. They mean the act of writing or communicating in language is mightier than a weapon. And so I have to make sure that when I say the pen is mightier, I'm not talking about this particular piece of hardware. I got to say, I got to make sure you get the scope of the metaphor. Go ahead, Sam.
Same point. When you say it is what it was, it is what it is, it will be what it will be, the it is not the same.
Well, it's true for anything that I can focus on a concrete instance. I say, now I want to abstract out from one concrete instance in the here and now to the category, the metaphor, the scope of the metaphor, so that you can understand metaphorically what I'm talking about, and not the
But I
literal.
don't think you heard my point.
Well, here's the point. The point is, if you look at the text of the Bible, you'll see a literal interpretation and say, and there's no metaphor there. Baloney. It's allegory and metaphor all over the place. And the reason that people study that stuff is to say, what is exactly the scope of the metaphor for that concrete instance of something in the allegory? And if you believe that there's no such thing as an allegory or a parable or a metaphor, then you've thrown away a document that has a lot of insight in it, because it teaches us how to think metaphorically. And I want to learn how to think allegorically and metaphorically. And those are the beginnings of the process of thinking allegorically and metaphorically, and not literally. How did humans learn to think metaphorically, poetically, allegorically, parabolically? Because I want to learn how to do that. When I talk about a piece of technology, and I'm focused on technology, I've lost most of my audience. But if there is an abstraction in there that I want you to get, I got to think, how am I going to make this an analogy so that they get that I'm not talking about a specific thing, that I'm using it as an analogy for a broader abstract notion.
So Barry, may I respond?
Yeah.
I love the point you just made, because stories communicate very well, where your, let's say, scientific elaborations and graduate level treatises may not. I completely accept that. Okay.
Exactly.
It's foundational to one of the things that I'm proposing. Okay.
Yeah.
However, every one of those metaphors and allegories, in my opinion, when they actually do apply, you can actually trace the derivation from the foundational knowledge or science to the allegory and back and forth. Okay. You can actually do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm questioning are those values where you cannot do so, where you're actually supposed to take the story as truth itself without a further elaboration and supporting evidence or supporting irrational model of thought. That's the part that I think I'm really trying to address. I'm not attacking the value of stories and allegories, not at all. You know, in fact, it's foundational. I keep talking about the knowledge of how you communicate knowledge, okay? Very same point. The point that I'm trying to critique is when stories in religions don't have any further foundation than the story itself.
Right.
That's where I question. And that is where I really am trying to focus our attention, because that's where I say, do you really think there's a foundation there? Do you really think there's a further basis for understanding it? Now, science has come by and taken many of those stories and provided that foundation. And when it does, understanding that allows us to take the very next steps. If you say, no, science cannot do that, and you must accept the story as it is, there's no room for growth. There's no room for leaning in. There's no room for elaborating our understanding of it. And that is holding us back. That is what I'm trying to attack. And that is where we need to evolve and level up from. Over.
I'm going to bring up another article of mine if I can figure out how to spell the key word in it properly. There we go. Okay. This goes back to 2007, which is why I have to bring it up, because I can't memorize what I wrote 2007 years back in 2007. This is an article. Maybe I'll share it. That'd be easier than instead of me trying to. Let's find it here. Is this it? I think so.
May I ask, Barry?
Yeah.
Did you get the point I was making?
We're going to find out. Because if I share this with you, you can tell me whether or not it aligns with the point you're making. This is an article called Kaya Story, and the Kaya in this is reference to the Greek letter chi, which is an X-shaped symbol. This goes back to a cultural anthropologist named Victor Turner, who studied the ritual cultural practices that kicked into play whenever there was some kind of a political conflict or disagreement that arose within a tribal community. And so he was a cultural anthropologist that looked not only in present day conflict, but also historically how conflicts played out historically in the historical record. And he came up with this notion of liminal social drama. That's what he called for the kind of drama that emerges when there's a conflict until some kind of resolution is crafted. Now, here was the word I was looking for, anti-structure. The liminal social drama, what we sometimes call a political debate, or in this case, disagreement here in YouTube, Zoom call. He said these have remarkable structure. The actual drama or the dialogue or the disagreement has a structure, and he called it anti-structure, meaning that the anti-structure diagrammed like the letter chi, like a inverted double cone. He says what happens in a liminal social drama is you take the original conflict as it appears here and now, and you work it backwards in chronological order in reverse to get back to the root of the emergent conflict. Once the roots of the conflict have been uncovered, revealed, and understood, the liminal social drama can be recrafted and rewritten in the forward direction with an alternative ending, converting the arc of the story from an arresting, lamentable tribal tragedy to a rollicking ritual communal comedy. And so the next thing he says is, where was this notion of writing stories that had this anti-structure, this X-shaped thingy? Where do we find that in human history? And it turns out in conventional dramatic literature, especially in Bible stories, this same mirror image story structure is called chiasmus, after the Greek letter chi, which illustrates the pattern. And by the way, Gregory Bateson was one of the first modern people to write about it. Mammals in general, and we among them, can care extremely not about episodes, but about the patterns of their relationships. So the point is that, and I have this diagram here, this funky little diagram, which is actually a very complex mathematical structure. It grows and grows and grows chaotically until you have this funny place where it becomes a big public drama, and then you work it backwards down again. This is actually a Lie group in mathematics, but it's got this chi structure. And the idea is, where do you learn to write stories that have the property that it takes a liminal social drama, a disagreement, and works it way backward to a root, and then works it way forward to a better idea? And the answer is, in classical literature, especially in Bible stories, you see this anti-structure, this educational anti-structure. And he points out that if you want to know if a story is simply a flight of fancy or it's built on something real, look to see if it obeys this anti-structure model. If it obeys the anti-structure model, then there is not only a lesson to be learned, but there is a lesson in the machinery of storycraft to be learned. And so when I wanted to learn how to write allegories and parables, I had to go back to, where did we learn to write educational stories that are not to be taken literally, but to be taken as a model for understanding a drama, getting to its root cause, and then rethinking it from the get-go to a different outcome. And that's what most people don't get. I didn't know about this until I came across Victor Turner, how long ago? We're talking about 2007 when I wrote that thing. So when I look at a Bible story or a piece of Greek literature or any kind of literature, I don't care who wrote it or when, does it have this chiastic structure, this anti-structure? And if so, can I learn how did somebody have enough brains to write a story that way, so I can gain an insight not only into what happened, but also how to write the bloody stories that way? Go ahead, Sam. I'll stop the share here.
So I think I get the point, which is that a lot of the education you're trying to establish starts from stories, and these stories have gone through this chiastic process in order to ground them in some truth with either a lowercase or an uppercase t, okay? So I accept that that's a good method, and accept that that's actually what science educators try to do as well. So I have no issue with that.
Yep.
What I have issue is when that is not accepted, when it's not okay, or whether it's even denied, that you can take a story out of any book
and do this process.
Not any book.
No, I'm saying if there is a book like this and the people who support that book say, no, you cannot do it with this book, that's where I have a problem. Because essentially what science is trying to do is tell that chiastic story about every story. Every story. Whether it's that there, if there's a ring around the moon, it's going to rain tomorrow, or whether it's, how you plant crops, a certain time of year or whatever, okay? There's a way to trace back to the foundational phenomena that gives rise to that story.
Right. And
And
Victor Turner
if
was
there is a
sociologist.
book where that is not allowed, then I question that power structure that makes it not allowed.
Victor Turner, who's a sociologist following the scientific method, chose the Bible as an example of a good book that has good chiastic structure in the stories. He says, of all the literature that you can look at to find examples of chiastic structure, the scriptures are one really good example because they're consistently using chiastic structure. Now, so are the Greek plays and some other great Homer and other literature. And there's an awful lot of literature that's total baloney. Okay. But the point is that he found that if you look for this, you can say the people who wrote those stories knew what the hell they were doing, because they were using this structure, this anti-structure structure, as not only at the detail level of that particular event that's historical and happened 3,000 years ago, but also how to tell the story in such a way that there is a moral lesson or an insightful lesson to be learned, not only in the process of that one example, but in how to write a story about such an example at 2 levels or 3 levels. And for me, that was a huge insight, because I'd go, I don't know how anybody can write these stories that do it, that work. How can you write a story? Umberto Eco says, whereof we cannot express a theory, we must narrate a story instead. Well, fine. How do you write a fucking story that does the job? Well, tell me how to write a story. Show me examples of stories that do the job and why they do the job. The theory behind storycraft. Here comes Victor Turner 50, 60 years ago and say, chiastic structure does the job.
Okay, so here's an example of a story. May I tell this story now?
Sure, go ahead.
The horse that ran away. It's about your point about good and evil, about eating from the tree of knowledge and trying to discern good versus evil. And Sam knows this story way better than I do. In the village, the farmer, humble farmer, one day his horse runs away. And all the village people come to him and say, oh, what bad news. You know the story now, right?
Yeah, then but in the next iteration,
then the horse comes back with 2 other horses, okay? So all the villagers say, oh, what good news. You got your horse back, plus you got more horses.
Right.
And the next day, the son goes out and tries to tame one of the horses, gets thrown, breaks his leg. All the villagers come back and say, oh, what bad news. Your son broke his leg. Oh, poor you. And the next day, the army comes by looking for conscripts to join the army. And they take a look at this guy with his broken leg and say, you're not useful. And the villagers say, oh, your son doesn't have to go to war. So the whole point is, if you ascribe good and evil to specific events and phenomena and situations, you don't know what the bleep you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay? That's the story.
Yeah.
Now,
That's a
did
good
a farmer
allegory.
actually have a horse that ran away? It's irrelevant, right?
No, it's an allegory.
Yeah.
And the
You're missing
allegory has
you're missing the
chiastic.
key pin here. You're missing a key piece here. You know what you're missing?
Finish.
You're missing a key piece, a very important part of it.
Okay, please complete.
When you say the horse ran away, you say bad luck. What the father say? We shall see.
We shall see. That's right.
Yeah, you missed
The
that part.
wise
We
sage
don't
says,
really know.
don't draw a conclusion yet.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Wait for the evolution of the story to
That's right.
appear, and
Yeah.
then gain the insight from the structure of the flips and the flops. Okay.
That's right.
So
So
now
Here's an extrapolation to the story. If I extrapolate to the extreme, let's say to billions and trillions of years from now, none of it matters. I should just do whatever I want, right? None of it matters.
don't jump
That's
to
the flip side.
conclusions.
That's
The
the flip
insight,
side.
don't jump to conclusions or don't jump to judgments on short notice. That's the durable moral of the story. Don't jump to conclusions on short notice, because you're going to be myopic. So the moral of the story is, long vision, not myopic vision. Myopic vision is going to give you the wrong conclusion and therefore the wrong action.
But think about what you consider long. If long is the lifetime of the sun, that's one perspective.
Right.
Son lives a happy life, doesn't go to army, doesn't get killed, whatever, okay? You could say that's good or bad. You take another scale where you look at 1,000 years, none of it really matters. You look at 10 billion years, none of it really matters, right?
Unless
This is the
we get off-
constant dot in the larger picture, right?
Unless
Of
we
both the white and
get
the black.
space travel and we go to Betelgeuse, not Betelgeuse, it's the wrong one. It's going to blow up. You know, if we can get off of this solar system, which in 1,000 years, well, probably in 1,000 years, it's not unrealistic that we've already got unmanned craft going out from the solar system. That unmanned craft can be carrying the germ of living creatures that can be incubated. There's no reason why you couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I mean, you
at
can
least
incubate.
tardigrades.
So, and that's the Superman story. Kal-El, they put the kid in the rocket and it takes it, and he's already born, but he doesn't have to already be born. Could be a sperm, what's the name of the,
A zygote?
no, in cosmology, that I can't remember the name of the panspermia. You send the sperm out, in all directions, and if you're lucky, one of them is going to land on a habitable planet, and the species will survive, but you won't know it. Superman's story is not panspermia because they especially sent it to Earth. And by the way, Kal-El and Jor-El, the father is Kal-El and Jor-El is Superman. And those are Hebrew phrases. And the L in Kal-El and Jor-El, that L is Most High. That's the name of the deity of the Old Testament. It's not the name, it's the pronoun for Most High, intelligence or wisdom. So and you can look it up. I forget exactly what I think Kal-El means Most High of all. I think Kal is all. And Jor-El, I don't remember what, but you can look them up. The guys who wrote that picked those words from Hebrew intentionally. And they never bothered to tell you, that those were Hebrew words, but they are.
So by the way, I very much enjoyed this interaction, okay? I think I have a glimmer of additional insight into the way you think, Barry.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure that I really understand the utility of this term God in this larger context, okay? I understand it from a personal context in many ways. But I still think from a social standpoint, it's doing a lot of harm. And so I just want to leave it there for now because I would like to go and prepare to have brunch with my daughter.
Okay.
So I would like for you guys to continue as long as you like, okay?
No,
But,
we're leaving. I need to go. I need to go. I need to go somewhere.
Sam, Barry, I really
think about
appreciate this
Sam.
conversation.
The rule of law is doing a hell of a lot more damage than the divine inspiration that's attributed to the storybook character.
The rule of law without a learning mindset. Let me add that word.
Yeah, the learning mindset. If you had the learning mindset, you would have thrown away the rule of law 3,500 years ago, replace it by something that's a lot more intelligent and wise and functional and nonviolent.
I'll leave it there for now.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining, Sam. Thanks,
Okay.
Barry.
All right.
Bye-bye.